Hello, everybody. My name is Roy Nemmer of Mundo Albiceleste.com, and today it's all about the Argentina team. Argentina versus Italy. The final list is out. We know which players will be available for Argentina against Italy. The Finalissima on June the 1st at Wembley Stadium in London. We did a previous video where we spoke about the preliminary list. Well, the final list has just been announced. There have been 6 cuts from the team, and one is a pretty big one. So let's just get to it. Let's get to the final list of players, the ones that have been selected. Let's start off with the goalkeepers. All 4 goalkeepers are still there. Emiliano Martinez, Juan Musso, Geronimo Rulli, and Franco Armani. Those 4 all make the cut. And our first cut is in the defenders. So the final list for the defenders, Gonzalo Montiel, we got Molina, Foyt is in there, Cuti Romero of Tottenham Hotspur, he makes it. Pesela, Senesi, Marcos Senesi, the big inclusion. He is there. Otamendi, Lisandro Martinez, Perez, Tagliafico, and Marcos Acuna. The player that has been cut, the man that was there, part of the preliminary list of players, not there in the final, Martinez Cuarta, the man from Fiorentina. And if you've been following Argentina, at the very least, at least from last year's Copa America up until now, then this cannot come as a surprise to you. Martinez Cuarta appears to have lost not only a starting spot, but also a place in the team. If we just take a look at it, obviously mentioned Marcos Senesi, he gets called up the center back. Perez, he's gotten called up a couple of times now since the end of the Copa America. Juan Foyt can play as center back as well. Lisandro Martinez has gotten some matches ahead of Martinez Cuarta. Pesela's in there as well, and it certainly looks like Scaloni maybe starting to look at other alternatives as opposed to just Martinez Cuarta. There are some training sessions for Scaloni to take a look at Perez, take a look at Senesi, see how they might do, if there's something that he likes from them. And there are some friendly matches lined up prior to the start of the World Cup, but do not be surprised at this rate anyways if Martinez Cuarta is not selected for the World Cup. I'm not saying he won't be. I'm certainly not saying that. All I'm saying is right now, the odds are not in his favor in that regard. There's a lot of competition. If we take a look at it, Otamendi, Lisandro Martinez, Christian Romero, Perez, Senesi, Juan Foyt can play there as well. So there's a lot of competition for Martinez Cuarta. And, he's going to have to do something at the end of this season or the start of the next season to try and impress Scaloni to keep his spot and be included in the World Cup. So that was the defenders. Let's take a look at the midfielders because there's some news here. And if we take a look at the midfielders, there's only 5 technically that have been selected. Guido Rodriguez, Alexis McAllister, Rodrigo De Paul, Ezekiel Palacios, and Giovanni Lo Celso. Those are the 5 that have been selected by Lionel Scaloni. The big name here is the absence of Leandro Paredes. And Nicolas Dominguez also got cut. He was part of the preliminary list. But Paredes, the big one, he has constantly been selected by Lionel Scaloni for the Argentina national team and has started most matches. There's a couple of matches at the Copa America where Guido Rodriguez, would start in place of Paredes. But generally speaking, Paredes has always been there. He has been a starter. And the reason why he got cut, or the reason why he has not been selected, is because of the injury. He did pick up an injury at the start of April, required surgery in the groin area, and the recovery time for that is about 2 months. And since his injury, it's been reported, will he make it? Will he not make it? I mentioned in the last video on the preliminary list, when that came out in that video, I said, look, he's up. He's up against time. It's a race against time for him. He will not make it. It's a big loss for Argentina. He's part of that midfield trio, right? That midfield 3, him alongside Rodrigo De Paul and Gio Lo Celso. Those 3 midfield have been phenomenal for Argentina. But Paredes is not there. That doesn't mean that there's no one else to replace him. Certainly not. We have mentioned Guido Rodriguez in the past. I just mentioned him a couple of seconds ago. He played at the Copa America. Both those players rotated. One match was Guido, the other was Paredes. So Guido can certainly play that role against Italy. If not, Alexis McAllister, he started the last 2 matches, but he started in place of Gio Lo Celso. At least in terms of McAllister, he has very little experience. In terms of Guido, he has a lot more experience. Maybe that could favor Guido. And then, as I mentioned, Rodrigo de Paul, Gio Lo Celso, and the third one on that list, Ezekiel Palacios. And Palacios is another one that's kind of been, he's been in the squad. He hasn't necessarily always started or always played, but he might be, he might be an option in there for Lionel Scaloni in place of Paredes. Personally speaking, I'm not saying I would prefer, but I think we're going to end up seeing Guido Rodriguez against Italy to replace Leandro Paredes. But hey, there's still a lot of time until that match, and there's still a couple of training sessions until that match. So those are the two that have been cut. Leandro Paredes, the big one. Nicolas Dominguez, not much of a surprise, to be honest. Similar to Martinez Cuarta, he hasn't always been selected for Argentina since the end of the Copa America. Even at the Copa America, didn't really play much. The qualifiers afterwards didn't really play much. So not much of a surprise that he got cut. But there are some options in the forwards which could potentially play in midfield. So hey, let's take a look at the forwards. Let's take a look at them. And the first one, Lionel Messi, not much of a surprise there that he makes the final cut. Alejandro Papu Gomez, Nicolas Gonzalez, Angel Di Maria, Angel Correa, Paulo Dybala, Joaquin Correa, Julian Alvarez, and Lautaro Martinez. So 3 players that were cut, the ones that were part of the preliminary list, did not make it this time around. Lucas Ocampos, Emiliano Buendia, and Lucas Allario. And for Ocampos, this has got to be, this one has to sting. He started the last 2 matches and played not too well, let's say, not up to his standards. And when I say about the last 2 matches, I mean prior to the Copa America. Ocampos was constantly in the team. He was starting. He was playing well. And then those 2 qualifiers before the start of the Copa America didn't play that well. He got cut, did not make the team when Argentina won the Copa America. This time around, Ocampos back in the team, and he gets cut right before the match against Italy. So this one has to sting for him. The other one, Emiliano Buendia, and this one maybe a bit of a surprise, a bit of a not much of a surprise, depending on what way you look at it or how you decide to look at it. Buendia has always been kind of on the fringes of the national team. He's kind of been there and not there. And when he does get selected, he doesn't always make the final squad for the match. And when he does make it, it's not often that he ends up playing. He actually made his debut in the last 2 matches, in the last qualifiers for Argentina, despite being called up a couple of times since the Copa America. So he does not make it. And the other one, Lucas Allario. And this one is kind of an interesting one as well. Allario was constantly selected for Argentina before the Copa America. He got injured, was not able to make the Copa America, and he has not always been starting for Leverkusen. He started the last match, scored the last match for them last weekend. He got selected for the preliminary list, does not make it. And this is an interesting one because if we take a look at it, and once more, this is something I mentioned in the last video, it's just that now if Lautaro Martinez gets substituted, let's say against Italy, who do you bring on? There's no real backup, pure striker. You have Julian Alvarez, not much experience. He could only get better, and he will certainly only get better. And then you have Joaquin Correa, who's more of a center forward than an actual number 9. Do you want to play Paulo Dybala in that position as a number 9? Possibly. But in terms of an actual just pure striker, pure number 9, Lucas Allario was that. He is that. And he has not been selected. So in terms of backups to Lautaro, Alvarez, Allario's not there. And then, as I mentioned, we have Joaquin Correa and Paulo Dybala. So very, very interesting in that regard to see what happens. So those are the players that have been selected. Those are the players that have been cut. And again, the big news, as I mentioned earlier, Paredes is not there. But on the plus side, so to speak, this does allow Scaloni to kind of experiment a little bit in terms of at the World Cup. What happens if Paredes gets suspended or something happens, Paredes cannot play? Who's your backup? Who do you play instead of Paredes? So this could be the perfect opportunity for Scaloni to test out against the big team with a trophy on the line. So it'll be very, very interesting to see who starts in place of Leandro Paredes. Goalkeeper-wise, Emiliano Martinez, in all likelihood, will be the starting goalkeeper against Italy. Defensively, it's going to be very interesting. Lisandro Martinez and Cuti Romero still recovering. So who's going to partner Nicolas Otamendi? Does this open the door to Marco Senesi? And by the way, there's an interview with Senesi, which I translated. It's all in English. It's on the website. I'll leave the link down below if you haven't checked it out. He talks about the Argentina national team picking Argentina over Italy, and what it was like getting the call from Roberto Mancini. What did Mancini tell him to try and convince him to play for them? So that one, it's going to be at the bottom in the description. Check out the link to read the interview if you haven't already. So Senesi could be one that could start alongside Otamendi. Midfield, we spoke about Paredes and his possible replacement. And up front, I mean, you got Di Maria in there. You got Nicolas Gonzalez, who's been playing well and played well in the last match against Ecuador. You got Messi in there. So it's going to be very interesting in terms of substitutes, how Scaloni mixes it around. I mentioned there's some, let's say, forwards that could play in midfield. Papu Gomez can drop back. Paulo DYBALA can drop back a little bit. Obviously, Messi drops back. So it's going to be very, very fun to see how Scaloni plays this one in terms of the midfielders and who does what and who gets selected. I'm happy with the list. I'm very happy with the list. I wasn't expecting any major cuts. Paredes was one that I was kind of keeping an eye on, and not a total surprise. I'll be honest, Paredes aside, the one that I'm mostly surprised about is probably Lucas Allario. I thought Scaloni was going to take the match against Italy and probably bring Allario on as a substitute to see. But hey, he hasn't been selected. Scaloni knows much better than he knows the team much better than I do, and much better than everyone else. He's the one that trains with the team. He's the one that coaches them. So in Scaloni, we or I anyways just blindly trust him in terms of what he's doing. No reason to doubt him, right? Copa America champions. But let me know what you think of this team. What would be your starting 11 if you take into consideration these 11 players? Or sorry, these players. What would be your starting 11? Let me know. Leave a comment below. Always enjoy reading them and interacting with everybody in the comments. If you like what you saw, hit that like button. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to never miss a thing, and hit that notifications button to be the first person notified when a new video drops. Once more, my name is Roy Nemmer of Mundo Albiceleste.com, and thank you for watching.